Yes, I just started. I just
Oh,
remembered.
okay, great.
Remembered. Yes, I just remembered. So I'm going to start from the beginning. So as we can see, this chapter is the most confidential knowledge. And what do we gain if we take on this most confidential knowledge? Krishna says you can get rid of all the miseries of this material world. But then if we see in the purport, it says that the devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. And he also says that the Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna and the association of devotees. So that means with our intelligence, we cannot understand. It has to be the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Krishna has to bless us. He has to give us the intelligence to uh, understand Him. So now, if we see, the purport is very long, but I'll give you a summary of that. In chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, we heard about the soul. Who are we? We are the spirit soul. In chapter 3, we learned about karma yoga. Now, chapter 2 and chapter 3 is considered to be confidential knowledge. It's just confidential knowledge. But what we learn in chapter 7 and 8 about how to perform devotional service, that is more confidential knowledge. But now, chapter 9 is most confidential knowledge. Is there anything beyond most? There isn't, right? So, why is it most confidential? Because Krishna is going to talk about unalloyed devotional service. That means there is no mixture in it. There is no, in devotional service, there is no mixture of jnana or karma. No, nothing at all. It's just pure bhakti yoga. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a process given by Prahlad Maharaj, a great devotee of the Supreme Lord, who's also considered a Mahajana, like a great personality. He says that Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So these are the 9 processes of devotional service. And what is the first one? It is Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing. So when we are hearing about the Bhagavad Gita, then that should lead us to Kirtanam, which is chanting. And then when we do hearing and chanting, then that leads us to the next step, which is Smaranam, which is remembrance of the Supreme Lord. So these are the 9 processes. So this is how we can learn to perform devotional service. Now it is up to us. We have a choice. The choice is that we take on this most confidential knowledge, and if we are sincere and Krishna sees our mentality, he sees that yes, we are seriously and sincerely interested in taking on this knowledge, because we have understood that this place is dukhalayam ashashvatam. This material world is full of miseries and it is temporary. Now that we have that desire, then Krishna comes forward to help. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ye yatham ma prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyam. As one surrenders unto me, I reward them accordingly. So it is up to us. How many steps are we ready to take? Right? If we take one step, he's ready to take 10 steps towards us. So he's just waiting for our desire, sincere desire to perform unalloyed devotional service. There should be no mixture in it. Sometimes people, they want to do bhakti yoga, or they want to do devotional service, or they want to be on the spiritual path because they want something, because they have a material goal. And Krishna says that's also okay if you want to, but then that's a mixed devotional service. That's like kind of doing business with the Lord, right? I do this, you do this for me, kind of. you know Generally in the material world, that's what friendship is. Oh, I helped you, now you help me, kind of. Like there's a saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? But it's always like a friend who can do something for me. What I can do for that, I'm going to think about it, but first you do something for me. So here Krishna is ready to help us, but he is, and it is only when he gives us the intelligence. in chapter 10, there is a nice verse, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam. Buddhi is intelligence. Krishna says, only when someone worships me with love and devotion, then I give them the intelligence. So Krishna is going to see, what are we doing? Yes, it's nice to hear Bhagavad Gita. Yes, it's nice to, hear it again and again, but what are we doing to follow the process? He sees that, right? Like, for instance, the teacher in the school, is explaining and, giving the knowledge to the kids, and then when it is time for the teacher wants to see, what are you doing with that knowledge? Are you processing it? Are you working on it? Are you doing the homework? And when there is a test, are you able to pass that test, right? The effort from the student also has to be there. So here Krishna is waiting for us to take that first step. And then once we take that first step, then he is just like a little child, right? A child, say maybe 2 or 3 years old, cannot cross the road, right? There's a lot of traffic. But if the child holds on to the little finger of the father, does the child have to worry? No, because the child has full faith in the father, that the father is going to protect, and the father can definitely protect, as long as holding on to the finger, the child can easily cross the road with the father. Same is with Krishna. He's waiting for us to give our little finger to him so that he can hold on to it. But people are afraid, oh, if I become serious in spiritual life, then what will happen? Then Krishna will control me, and that is not acceptable to me, because I want to be the controller of my own life. Are we able to control? Right from the time the child is born, can the child control itself? No. People are just carrying the child whenever they want, giving him to others whenever they want, feeding the child whenever they want. Like, the child may be crying because once the what's that called, diaper changed, but no, the mother thinks the child is hungry, so keep on, feed. Oh no, the child is crying because of something else. But it's beyond the child's control. Child cannot do anything, right? As we keep growing, nothing is in our control, but we still think, I am the controller, right? We cannot control old age, we cannot control disease, we cannot control others, right? We cannot even control our own body. So here the process is given to us, 9 processes, and the first one is hearing, and the next one is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Now let's see the verse number 2. We'll do only 2 verses today, because these two are very, very important verses. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratakshakamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. Translation: this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Now, the very first thing, Raja Vidya. Raja means king. So this knowledge is the king of education. King is who? He is the topmost, right? There's no one above the king. He is right on top, the highest position. So this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, is the king of education and is the most secret of all secrets. Now one may say, I can read the Bhagavad Gita, what's secret about it? Right? All the verses are there, translations are there, purports are there. We know what Arjuna asked, we know what Krishna replied. What's secret about it? The secret is that we may theoretically read the Bhagavad Gita and even hear the Bhagavad Gita theoretically, but the realization is not going to come. The deep meaning of the Bhagavad Gita we will not be able to understand unless Krishna gives us that intelligence to understand the Bhagavad Gita. People have read Bhagavad Gita over and over and over again, and still they have not been able to understand the Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because that surrender is not there, because that sincere desire is not there to understand the Bhagavad Gita. That there is, because there is like, there is no unalloyed devotion, that the devotion is mixed, it's mixed with something else, it's mixed with some other desires, so they are not able to understand the secret of all secrets, you see. And it's saying it's a perfection of religion. In fact, Krishna tells Arjuna that after you hear Bhagavad Gita, there's nothing more to be known, because everything is included in the Bhagavad Gita. That's why the summary of the Vedas is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the summary of Srimad Bhagavatam is the Bhagavad Gita. You see, it is just a small, tiny book of 700 verses, but it has the essence of all the Vedas. So, if somehow or the other we can realize this perfection of religion, then it's as good as we have understood all the Vedas, all the four Vedas. And what else does he say? He says it is everlasting. Now, supposing in this life, I have a very good credit score, and I have American Express card and a MasterCard, and I have a good bank balance, and I have, a lot of, what is it called? The When you get a credit card, the limit. I have a huge limit on the credit card. I can spend so much. I have all of that I can enjoy life. But the moment I give up this body, what happens to those cards? It has no value for me. I cannot take it with me to the next life, and in my next life say, oh, you know what, I had a credit score of 820, 820, like it was awesome, and I had so much money, bang, but no, it's not going to work. It's you start from zero. But as far as spirituality is concerned, all the time we are investing in hearing Bhagavad Gita, in chanting, in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, all that we carry with us. Unfortunately, if we come back into this material world, we bring all that spiritual bank balance with us, and we continue from where we left off. Say, supposing right now we are covering chapter 9, right? And supposing I have to leave my body tomorrow, what happens in my next life? If I'm not thinking of Krishna at the time of death, then of course it doesn't mean when I take on another body I'll start with chapter 10, but the point is that all this time spent in Krishna consciousness stays with us forever. So he's saying it is everlasting, it never ends, and it is joyfully performed. I'm not sure if all of you are still chanting every day, but when we chant, has any one of you experienced, like, you feel so sad while chanting and you start crying, oh, Hare Krishna. Do you do that? No. You feel happy when you chant because it's the holy name of the Lord. And that's what Krishna says. It's joyfully performed. When you even go to the temples and you see the devotees chanting, they are dancing because they are so joyful. They're so happy because of the potency of the holy name of the Lord. So this verse is telling us about King of Education because it is the essence of all knowledge. Now, Rajaguhyam, it is secret of all secrets. It's confidential because it's very difficult to understand. And the way to understand Krishna is already explained to us in chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. That one must approach a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. You see, so that parampara, that disciplic succession is very important. Why? Because all the gurus coming down right from Krishna, Krishna spoke it to Brahma, Brahma spoke it to Narada, Narada spoke it to Vyasadeva. So this parampara, this disciplic succession that's coming down, what's the importance of that? The importance is that there is no personal agenda. All the gurus in the disciplic succession are non-envious, and that's the first thing we learned in first verse of this chapter, where Krishna tells Arjuna, I'm giving you this most confidential knowledge because you are not envious. You see, that's important. And also by now, by chapter 9, Arjuna has got a very good idea the difference between body and soul. He has understood that he is not this body, and he is understood that he is the eternal spirit soul. Now that information, that knowledge about the soul, that's confidential knowledge. Okay, yes, the soul is eternal. But what is most confidential knowledge is the activities of the soul. What does the soul do? What is the soul's, what is the constitutional position? And here Krishna also says, Pavitram idam uttamam. Pavitram means purest. Why is Bhagavad Gita considered, first of all, king of education, secondly, secret of all secrets, and then Pavitram means purest. Why? Because just by understanding Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, all the sinful reactions can be removed. All of them. Now, when we go to chapter 18, verse 66, Krishna guarantees that. He says, Ma suchaha, do not fear. He says, Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tuam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami ma suchaha. That just abandon all varieties of religion and surrender only unto me. That is what he says. So this knowledge, which is pavitram purest, it removes sinful reactions. It not only removes the sinful reactions of now, but also of our past activities. You see what happens when if we have committed sinful activities in the past, we are either facing the reactions now, or we will face the reactions in the future. It depends. So these sinful activities, even though we have performed, they are still, some of them are in the seed form, right? Seeds that have not yet fructified. So it's not that, oh, I have been suffering till age X and then now I'm not going to suffer anymore. No, there might be still a lot of karma in the form of seeds which are yet to fructify. But if we roast these seeds, then what will happen? They will not fructify, right? If you take any seeds and you roast them, you saute them, they're not going to fructify anymore, right? So that is what we need to do with our sinful seeds, all that maybe. And what are these seeds? They are, some of them, like desires in our heart, sinful desires in our heart. So how do we saute or roast these seeds? It's a very simple process. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are not only cleansing our heart of all past sinful reactions, but we are also making our future a purified one, you see. And then what happens? The karma stops. You see, there might be a little bit reaction still there after we have started purifying ourselves. It's like, Prabhupada gives a nice example that when the fan is running and we turn the switch off, we switch off the fan, does the fan just stop? No, it starts, the speed starts reducing gradually, and then it comes to a halt, you see. So then this is what Prabhupada explains, that yes, we may have had past sinful reactions, but now that we have taken up Krishna consciousness seriously, that has stopped, but then that little residual karma is still there till the fan comes to a complete halt. So this is how, devotional service can help us to free ourselves from all past sinful reactions. And now in the verse he says pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means we can perceive the results, we can see the results. I don't know if you're not chanting, how much you're chanting. And the more we chant, the more we can experience, we can see, we can perceive the results. Why? Because chanting the holy names is not different from Krishna himself. Krishna and holy name are one and the same. Just like if we take in the material sense, if supposing I want a Coca-Cola. If I say Coca-Cola, that doesn't mean I get the taste of Coca-Cola. It's two different things, right? Unless I take that can and I drink it, I will not experience it. But with the name, holy name of the Lord and Krishna himself, it's the same. Just by chanting, it can give us transcendental pleasure. And chanting helps us in enlightening ourselves. And Krishna says, without a doubt, and in Kali Yuga, hearing is the best way to purify ourselves. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, who came 500 years ago, he said, Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyatha. In Kali Yuga, there is no other way, no other way, no other way except chanting, chanting, chanting. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very nice pastime of Narad Muni. Michael, do you know who's Narad Muni?
No, I haven't heard that name.
Oh, okay, okay. So he's a great sage. He is a pure devotee of the Lord, and he's also considered a Mahajana, a great personality. And he lives in the spiritual world, but he has a benediction. He can go to any planet, anytime, just by meditation. So he's a great sage. Now, he is in Srimad Bhagavatam, he is relating about his past life before he became Narada, before he became this great sage Narada. So he's describing that he was a little boy, a few years old, and he was living with his mother, who was they were very poor, and the mother was a maid servant where she used to wash the dishes in others' homes and all. So what happened one time, uh, a few sages were visiting, and it was the rainy season, and rainy season sometimes lasts for 3 to 4 months. So he used, so those sages, his mother was serving those sages, and Narada, in his previous, he as the son of maid servant was serving those sages also, serving them food and washing their dishes and everything. So he did a lot of service, and he heard Krishna Katha, the pastimes of Krishna from them. And that purified him so much that in his next life, he became the great sage Narada. And even though he was a son of a maid servant, he was very little. And after the sages left, his mother died of a snake bite. And he didn't know what to do. What does a little boy do? He just wandered around. He went to holy places. He heard more and more about the Supreme Lord, and this is how he purified himself, and in his next life became Narada. All just by hearing, all just by hearing. So hearing is the very first step in Krishna consciousness. And then, of course, Krishna is also saying this knowledge is the highest goal of all religion. Why? Because it shows us how to love Krishna. And then it says Susukham. Susukham means happy. Sukham means happiness. It is very joyfully performed. We will never, anytime we go to a temple, we never see, devotees very sad and depressed because they are chanting. No, they are very happy and joyful. It's so easy, so simple. You hear, you chant, you eat prasad, like that's a happy life. So devotional service gives that spiritual pleasure, and it makes one happy. And of course, we all know that our hearts are not clean. There is a lot of what you call gunk. Someone, I heard in one lecture someone saying gunk. Gunk, what's gunk? You can visualize it when I say it. This is what I heard. The what is that called? What's that pipe in the bathroom? What's that called? I forget. What's that called? From under the sink. Um, You understand, right? Right, that pipe, right? So when that is clogged, when that is clogged, because there is a lot of gunk inside, dried up stuff, dirty stuff in there, right? And then what does the plumber have to do? He has to pour in that liquid, I don't know what it's called, right? You pour that in that pipe, and then that kind of burns all that gunk, and then the whole pipe gets cleansed out. That is a gunk which is there in our heart from time immemorial. And all these births we've been collecting, lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion, all that gunk is there in the heart. And that is why it needs a lot of cleansing. And that is why, just like when a person is diseased, if is really diseased, has something very painful disease, then the doctor gives a strong medication and gives higher doses and says, okay, you've got to take these tablets or this solution or whatever it is every day for x number of days, so that gradually that disease from the body is removed. There is a detoxification in the body. So this is what chanting does. It's a very strong medication for all the gunk that is there in our heart, so that we can cleanse the heart, and gradually all this gets washed away, and then all that is left is pure heart. And when that pure heart, we will be able to really experience the joy of devotional service. Right now, performing devotional service is a chore for us, right? Oh, chanting. Oh no, I just chanted yesterday. Do I have to chant again today? It's so, you can call it painful, to pick up the beads and sit down and chant. Even 10 minutes seems to be like, oh, 10 hours of, time spending. So that, um, joy of chanting comes when that purification, and that purification will not take place unless chanting is done every day. Just like the disease, the patient will not get relief from the disease unless the patient takes the medication every day, even though that may be very bitter. So the heart needs to be purified, and then we will be able to understand Krishna. And Krishna sees our endeavors. He sees, oh, this person is sincerely endeavoring, so then he gives extra mercy. He gives extra mercy, extra intelligence, so that the process becomes faster and easier. So the process of devotional service is Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam. That this is king of education, is the purest, is the secret of all. It is joyfully performed. It gives a lot of pleasure. And this is how we can somehow or the other become self-realized. Right now, we have not realized ourselves. Right now, we are kind of in the box, in the box that we have been put. It's like, you have that cookie cutter, where you have the different shapes, star shape or whatever it is, different cookie cutters, especially Christmas time. Ladies, women, they make those cakes, and put them in those cookie cutters, so you get those shapes. So right now we are in that position where we all have put ourselves in that form. Okay, I want to be this, I want to be that. No, 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 I don't like this, I want to change it to this. So that is our right now our situation. But we need to come out of it, like in even in businesses say, think out of the box, right? You have to really, if you want to really progress, it has to be out of the box. So here, this most confidential knowledge, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that because you are non-envious, you're not envious of me. And of course, because Arjuna was also a friend of Krishna and a devotee of Krishna, so that's why he became eligible to hear Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Lord. So we can see right from the first chapter onwards. The first chapter, of course, is the battle scene, where we see the right and the wrong, the religious and the irreligious, and how there is lamentation and confusion. And Arjuna doesn't want to fight because he's full of compassion. He doesn't want to kill his brothers, his grandfather, his teacher. So he's very confused. Why? Because he's thinking on the bodily platform. There is no self-realization. But then chapter 2 onwards, we see Krishna explaining to Arjuna the basics. Hey Arjuna, you are not this body. This guru is not this body. This grandfather is not the body. They are all spirit souls. And he explains to him the qualities of the soul. He explains to him so nicely in 22 verses about what the soul is all about. And then in chapter 3 and 5, he explains how to perform actions. He says, you're a kshatriya, you're a warrior, you are a soldier. Your job is to fight. But in what consciousness do you need to fight? Without any desire for success or failure. Don't think of the results. You leave the results to me, but you perform your prescribed duty. In chapter 4, he gives the history of the Bhagavad Gita. He gives the uh, when this Bhagavad Gita was spoken 120 million years ago, right? Imam Vivasvate Yogam, that this is a very, very old knowledge that has been coming down since 120 million years, but it has been repeating now. Krishna is repeating it 5,000 years ago because Yogo Nashtaha Parantapa, this knowledge was being destroyed. So we see that Krishna is explaining about, of course, Dhyana Yoga in chapter 6. And then in chapter 7, we learned 4 kinds of people who surrender to Krishna and 4 kinds of people who do not surrender. And then in chapter 8, we heard so much about how to attain Krishna. And now in chapter 9, Krishna is giving the most confidential knowledge because he's going to talk about unalloyed devotional service. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is that we come to a state of consciousness where we perform devotional service. And the first step of devotional service is hearing. When we hear, then we chant. When we chant, then we remember. And then the other processes automatically fall in place. So we are going to cover only these 2 verses today because these are very, very important. Excuse me. And does anyone have any questions?
So, Hare Krishna Gita ji. Gita ji, you were telling unless someone is spiritually aligned and awakened, his heart is layered with dust or gunk, as you call it. So, by default, most of the people are covered by that. Is that so? Even if they are doing some good work, helping the poor, running old age home or running an orphanage, but they have not been spiritually inclined. I mean, I'm just thinking. So, do you think their heart is also having the layer of gunk?
Yes, very good question. In chapter 17 and 18, we will read more about this because generally people think doing good is good enough. You see, this is what people think, but they have not heard chapter 3 and 5 of Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna says that even good actions have good reactions, right? So it's like they are still going to be in the cycle of birth and death. So they have to come back, to get results of their good reactions. Now, if they are doing good things like, opening hospitals, feeding the poor and all, that means they have a good heart, right? They have compassion in their heart. So they are doing, but then they need to go beyond that, right? This is just for the body. What you're doing good is for the body, but we need to do good for the soul also, right? So it's okay to do that, but then you do extra also, which means you also give knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita so that the body is taken care and the soul is also taken care of, right? So they have a good heart, they have compassion, but I have noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed, most of the time when these good deeds are done, there is a reason behind it, right? Like sometimes, oh yes, I recently only, there is a new temple being opened up in India, and I was asking, would you like to donate? So the first question was, where will my name be put? Where can they, put my name, and
And
how much do I have to pay, for a big slab, with my name on it. So that, that we will learn in chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, where they have some desire, to
yeah.
get recognition.
Yeah, and probably even those who are not doing with that intention, but they're probably collecting good karma. So they'll have to come back, as you said, to those who are running really from their good heart. They're
Yes,
doing some good work, but probably they're collecting good karma. For them,
yes.
they'll have to come back to.
But then change the consciousness. Say, for instance, you feel like feeding some poor. Very good. Why not feed them prasadam, right? You cook for them, you offer it to the Lord, and then you feed them. So what are you doing? You're doing a good deed, but you're not getting any reactions. Plus, you're helping the other person by purification, right? Because with prasadam, when we eat sanctified food, our mind, senses, and finer brain tissues get purified. Okay. Any other question? Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will see you next Wednesday, and thank you all so much. And please chant.
Thank you. Thank
Please
you.
chant.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gita ji.
Hare Krishna.